Welcome to Transforming Us podcast. I'm Jess.
And I'm Tamara. We're trauma-informed relationship coaches and old friends here to discuss common patterns and what leads us to paths of security.
You know, people are feeling overwhelmed and disconnected in their painful relationships, which often leads to mental health crises.
We want to share some new ideas and practices to help you cultivate curiosity, compassion, and to redeem the patterns in your relationships, starting with yourself.
Join us on this journey of transforming us. Grab a cup of coffee and let's dive in. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited to introduce to you for the very first time on this podcast, my husband, Travis. We live in Spartanburg, South Carolina. We have 5 kids together, and he has a heart for justice in the foster care system, those with disabilities. This is all core to who he is. So you'll hear more about his desire to advocate for those who don't have agency. He's generously stepped in to share his Enneagram and attachment patterns and help all of us learn. So if you are an 8 or you live with one, listen up. Travis leads several podcast projects and is deeply involved in caregiving, foster care, advocacy. He enjoys running, adventure, freedom, pushing the limits, whether it's traveling to new places or combing through books and finding powerful quotes. He extracts the vitality in all of life. Thanks for being here, Trav.
Great to be on. Really honored to be on your podcast. So,
yeah. Well, we have a long history of doing some podcasts together, so we're really comfortable in this space. But this is, like I said, the first time he's on Transforming Us. So is there anything else you wanted to share about our family or maybe something you're looking forward to?
No, I mean, the only thing I would personally add just about myself is I'm also edgy as heck. And I had to wear that shirt. So a little, no, as far as looking forward to 2026, this new year, I'm just really excited about, we have some land in East Tennessee that is just beautiful. It's such a place of retreat and rest and mountain views, and excited to kind of work more on that vision behind that and what we'll ultimately use that for. And just excited for, more reading this year, podcasts and adventure. So
yeah, I am also excited to enjoy the land, and we are going to be putting those out there listed on Airbnb again. So if anybody's interested in a soul care retreat, self-guided, just mountain view. So we're booking for those coming up here starting in March of 2026. So check that out. We can put the link in the show notes. Sound good?
There you go.
All right. So Travis is heading up that new adventure. But we are here talking about you as an 8, right? So when did you first learn about the Enneagram?
So for me, it was, I would say back to I want to say sometime around 2018. I work with America's Kids Belong. It's a national org in the foster care space. And we went on a work retreat, California, and one of our colleagues, sort of as a, team building exercise and kind of a culture building thing. I think we all got a Enneagram book. Ian Cron's, is it The Road Back to You? Or I'm trying to remember. So, and that was, I would say just diving a little bit into that and then trying to kind of quickly figure out a type, even at the retreat. And then kind of just that, those were the first conversations I remember.
Yeah. And so did you quickly land on 8 as your style?
Well, I think and I'm sure you've said this in the podcast. I mean, it can be even a long journey to really hone in on what really am I? And sometimes even after exploring a number for a long time, thinking that's home, you realize, well, actually, maybe I'm not. So I do know that out of the gate, I really resonate a lot with a 7. Just, I have a lot of I want to kind of find the next thing and escape and just have fun and, kind of this life of just adventure and fun. And so that really resonates. So I know now I have a really strong 7 wing, but I think then as I was looking through them, and I really resonate with a lot of the 8 patterns of wanting autonomy, less about necessarily wanting control as to not wanting to be controlled. Kind of some of the wounds around not trusting people, a lot of the, hard to be vulnerable, kind of the armoring up traits of the 8, really like, yeah, this really feels, yeah, whether I want
Mhm.
to admit it or not, probably who I am
Yeah,
in those patterns.
for sure.
So,
Yeah,
and
so
then,
then eventually, after I became an Enneagram coach and had been studying deeper into it, you had the opportunity to go through the Enneagram and marriage certification also.
mhm.
So what was that like?
It was a deep dive. It was cool because it was like I didn't have to do it, it enrolled with a bunch of other classmates, kind of at my pace. But yeah, no, I really did learn a lot, and it was, and then learning about all the different subtypes and the instincts, and then, essentially to have what 27 flavors of Enneagram
Yeah,
numbers if you add that. So yeah,
yeah.
it was great.
Yeah, you really have gotten into loving learning about the instincts. And I know
Hmm.
Scott Allender talked in depth about those subtypes on an episode we did last season. Yeah. So let's dive into more of the patterns. For an Enneagram 8, the core lie is it's not okay to be weak or vulnerable. How does that play out for you?
I've reflected on this a lot of why I resonate with that and maybe also like where that came from and when did I start feeling that sense of like, especially it's not okay to be weak. So here's the weird thing of like I understand and I have a huge heart for, and I'm going to say this in quotes because I think you can have the appearance. I mean, there's many ways I may think that I appear strong and I'm maybe the weakest in the room. So when I say weak, it's the perception of what's weak. And I think that I have a huge heart for being there to protect the weak and the vulnerable. When I hear the line, it's not okay to be weak. There's kind of this weird tension of like, just for me, that feels out. Because when I see the lives of what I appear, maybe there's a more weak individual or whatever, they're amazing. They are some of the most inspiring people I know that teach me a lot. So then it's like, well, I don't really believe it's not okay to be weak. I guess there's just something in me that I don't want that to feel.
Yeah.
So if that makes sense. And my memory goes back to is thinking a lot about my dad, who as a kid, I think, um, there just were plenty of times, at least this was reinforced, was that I had a very strong dad who I looked up to and he was, he could do anything. But I felt like there were times he was run over by other people or he backed down or cowered in ways. Uh, and not always either, but there was just enough instances where I'm like, Dad, I mean, why are you letting this guy talk to you like that? Or I know we have really bad old machinery, but like, be more confident. I just didn't like seeing, you know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
this, yeah. And
Is it like weakness means you're in a vulnerable place where someone can control you
I think
or take
so.
advantage of you or
Yeah.
humiliate you? Like, these are all
Yeah.
things you don't want to experience.
Yeah. So I think some of that is that. And then just sort of this sense of just more self respect, like
Mm,
you are awesome. You could teach this guy, you could
yeah.
teach him a lesson. You could, um, so yeah, maybe it was like this worry then that if he didn't appear stronger at times, that he would maybe get taken advantage, and then by proxy, I would too as a kid.
Yeah.
I don't know
That's
what was
powerful.
deeply rooted in that. So
Yeah. So you see clearly those patterns of the core lie.
hmm
And what you're trying to avoid is weakness and vulnerability. Your gift, though, is protection and
hmm
um, and bringing a strength to everything you do and everyone you interact with. You have this need to be self-reliant,
hmm
and and your attention is always kind of on who does or does not have the power. in the
Uh-huh.
room, in the situation, in the
Uh-huh.
organization.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And you've spent a lot of time studying organizational leadership. You even got a master's degree in that. Knowing what you've learned about eights and how they can often lean towards leadership roles, can you describe some of the tension you've shared with me about eights as leaders?
Yeah, and so it is interesting. I have, like I said, a master's in org leadership. I geek out on it. I love, just w- learning and studying and kind of looking at organizations and leaders I've been under. And so there is this tension, I feel like, and this is stereotyping a bit, but like eights, I think as leaders, at least not healthy eights, can really be this sort of domineering, top to bottom down power, um, sort of commandeering, like the sort of authoritarian, um, kind of this is how it is going to be, and I'm going to lead the way. Um, and you're going to follow, and you're going to get on board or, and whatever. And so I'm stereotyping as sort of unhealthy, that sort of that shadow, that negative side of that and we all know when I think you can spot an 8 leader a mile away because you probably don't want to work there and you hate them and you feel bullied and it's just like but one of the things and there's I've kind of a great quote that I love quotes, and there's a great quote that I really think for me is sort of like showcases the tension I see. And so the Antoine Saint-Exupéry, who's an explorer, said, "If you want to build a ship, don't drum up the men to gather wood, divide the work, and give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea."
Mm,
There's a lot around, I think great leadership is empowerment. It's laying down power. It's empowering others to have power.
yeah.
Um, and so I think when the tension then of an 8 is if I want the power, if I want the control, if I think that my way is the best, or I don't trust those under me or those or trust giving away power, the very thing that I think makes organizations have the magic spark, have a culture of care and love and appreciation and growth and all of the things that make um, a great culture is that it is largely not some of the tendencies that an 8 as a leader wants to do. So that
Mm,
doesn't mean I think 8s are dynamic leaders, and that's and because I think that there's a lot of confidence, there's a lot of energy. I think 8s can see over hurdles in ways maybe other numbers can't, of like, because there's just this belief in like, we can do this. And I think like in a healthy way, that sense of sort of, we can do this kind of can become a shared, it's like that strength sort of can be a shared gift of like someone else going, we've all had a coach or something that was like, you don't believe you can make it in the fourth quarter. And that coach is, we will, you guys look up, put your chin up. We're going to get back out there on the field and that's a very, I think, 8-ish thing.
yeah.
And so I think there's that beautiful gift that gives, but when it's sort of this, my way and my power, and I don't give up power, and I don't trust you, and it's just, it creates this fearful toxic culture. And I think 8s more than any other number, and this is my opinion, can more ruin and wreck people
Mm,
in their sort of strength or
yeah.
misuse of power.
Yeah. When not self aware,
Yep.
not transforming and growing in the likeness of Christ, like when
Mm-hmm.
they are not finding a place of innocence and humility, eights can be very destructive. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
gifts, like you mentioned, is if an eight is self aware,
Mm-hmm.
they help to evenly distribute power so that
Mm-hmm.
everyone has some and no
Mm-hmm.
one's on top. Everybody sees that they have agency and that
Mm-hmm.
we can all do this. And wouldn't you say that a healthy eight allows others to help them and knows what their needs are?
Yeah, I think I'm seeing that in my own work and growth, and struggle. Um, I do think that. I think that because I think growth is innocence, right, as an 8, and so reclaim innocence is sort of reclaiming that sense of like, it's not all on me, I think of a child who doesn't sense that they have to do everything um, and I also think that the gift sort of an 8 can bring into spaces like that and in leadership and things is the sense that, a high sense of justice, right and wrong, an acute awareness of like who's the marginalized, um, who do we have to protect and help? I mean, I think we have just a softness for, and that's where like when we kicked this podcast off, I hadn't even thought of it this way, but it's interesting on that tension between how much of a heart I have for, again, in quotes, the perception of the weak and helping protect them, but then that almost repulsion to me being that.
Yeah.
And it's weird to think of it that way because it's like, wow, I have so much compassion and love for that. Where's that self-compassion
Yeah.
that I can't let myself be that
Yeah.
or fear it?
Right. Well, it's a perfect picture of having that desire for the true self and like wanting to, you know, elevate that in others, but it's
Mhm.
hard because your protective mechanisms and childhood wounds and all that stuff like rise up and your false self won't let you be that, you know. And
Yeah.
so just that awareness is so good. So
Yeah.
as an 8 though, your anger is pretty on the surface. Like 8s, 9s, and 1s are all in the anger body
Mhm.
center. They, you know, they all feel it, but they have a different relationship with anger. So yours, it comes out, right?
You're married to me, like
Yeah, I will attest.
full admission.
There's not much of a filter on the expression of anger. So how do you see that intensity? Do you want to say anything about that?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm just curious, does it feel like you live in a wind tunnel of just anger, sometimes just blowing against your
No,
face?
it's not a
No?
constant blowing. It's like never knowing when there's gonna be
Oh, okay.
like
Yeah.
a fire hose turned on
Yeah,
randomly,
yeah,
and you're
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
"What just happened?"
Yeah, yeah.
You're pretty chill, like, when you feel, like like you said, you're a high 7 wing, you know, that playfulness and that
Uh-huh.
lightheartedness and
Yeah.
just when you're relaxed, like, there's not any
Yeah.
of that going on,
Yeah.
but it's when you feel threatened by something. So it could be weakness, it could be,
Mhm.
someone asking you to get in touch with your emotions or,
Mhm.
um, yeah.
I think that's true. I really anger is always at the surface. It's like it's just right there, just right below, just this low level, just and so you know, uh, I feel like then the different ways that trigger it, it can be those things you described. It can be just often it's a sense of like injustice of like, and for me, especially as a dad, I mean, just in our house, like that can really be a problem where, I might be overhearing the kids and, one of them sort of just kind of really treating the others in like a really, kind of way that's not fair, right? Instead of like, this, okay, well, this is a great teaching moment and let's sit down and now, hey, but it's more of like, man, I just, want to set him straight, like, dude, you're a jerk, and then in the process, I'm a jerk by how I can engage it. So, um, but yeah, I really do resonate with, overly kind of releasing anger and
Mhm.
and to the point where a lot of times, like you and I joke of like that, um, fire, um, what's the saying? Fire,
Fight fire with fire.
well, no, fire, set, aim, or, the
Oh,
backwards order of shooting,
ready,
of
fire,
that.
aim.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, one of the things I often talk about, and I feel like this would probably be a common 8 tendency for 8s, is that sense that a lot of times the gut instinct is like so quick to react and respond, and in a lot of ways that's a gift, of a sense of like understanding a situation quickly or thinking we do and confidently, asserting ourselves and kind of engaging it quickly. Um, but so often as well, the over-reliance on that can tend to just be like saying things that are just like, oh my gosh, not filtering, too much intensity. And so for me, I so often am seeing this, especially as a dad, and obviously with you, it's very much a thing, but just saying something too strong, or the words and then oh man, I got to dial this down and then apologize and repair. And then like, I'm actually now in a really good headspace and like, I'm thinking clearly. If I would have just breathed, but it's like damage control. And then now we're in a better place, but it's like, boom, that can just be like a cheetah pouncing on a gazelle. And whoa, I should, yeah.
Yeah. The only other things that I would say about like just adding to what you've shared is that 8s have that desire for autonomy. They have this strong, along with justice, it's that like, don't tell me what to do. Like I want to be my own man. So that could look like, kind of I'm the boss or I'm independent of you and you're not going to tell me what to do. And so that comes out, especially in marriage. But I would say, when you say you feel that a lot at work too, you have to rein it in.
Yeah, and I think we're all programmed to know, like, read the room. Some of us do that better than others, but like where you can kind of like, okay, well, this is this space. I know I can't really do that, or I'm not going to still be employed, or, like, or this, I need to like dial it in, versus this setting where it's like, well, what's the loss if I, just kind of, so yeah, I mean, I do think that I'm pretty tame in settings, and I don't know. It sounds like I'm like a raging tiger. I think we've gone too far, haven't we? And
Hey, you're leading the way talking about your patterns. We've talked about all the gifts, but there's obviously a shadow side to a less self-aware 8. And you're growing in self-awareness. So
yeah, and I think like an important thing to be said about 8s that is part of a lot of our makeup is just intensity is a thing, and intensity isn't always bad. It's not always anger. It's not always like, it's not always a negative thing. I mean, passion, and we can think of how passion could be helpful, but I do think that the way intensity can come out, and especially on maybe some people more than others, like as a 4, you're so heightened towards sensitivity and emotions and expressions. So like our interplay with my intensity is a special problem, because it's just, maybe more so you're even, that can cause you to be more, what's the word when you,
dysregulated?
dysregulated. There we go.
Okay. Yeah.
It's so foreign to me to experience. So I'm like, what is that word even? But
you're saying you don't get dysregulated?
Well, no, now that would be vulnerable. So
anger,
no,
like blasting anger, is a form of dysregulation.
Live in dysregulation.
It's just like not that vulnerable, like, yeah. So you're describing, we both have a type of intensity. Mine's emotional intensity, and yours is like, there's an intensity that's related to that power and justice and autonomy and stuff. So yeah. And also, we haven't said much about your instinct that you've discovered is probably dominantly the sexual or the one-to-one. So when that meets the 8, you have kind of this subtype that Beatrice Chestnut calls possession. But what that really means is that, on the positive side, you have just this zest for life and new experiences and new foods and let's explore this new place, and just the vitality that I described in the beginning of who you are is just, it's an energy that I know everyone that meets you, like they feel it. Like Travis has this really cool energy about him that just brings things to life. And that truly is some of that instinct, like that one-to-one, what you're going to offer the world, whether it's a podcast or it's a book. You have 2 books, which we can link in the show notes. And you just have something to say, something to share, and it's with passion. So, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And as you said that, I think of how also connected to that is also kind of what I was saying earlier about thinking about a coach that really brings something out of someone. But I also have this really strong sense of like kind of helping empower that in others, like whether someone else, maybe wants to write a book, but they're like, oh, there's no way I could ever do it. And it's like, oh, let's sit down. You're going to do it. And I'm going to
Mhm.
help you help. And, I remember one of the greatest compliments I ever received was from a good friend of mine one time where I met with him about his nonprofit idea. And I loved it. And I thought, but I think they were really on the fence of like, do we, you have to really be courageous to kind of, step forward in that. And I think I just had this natural sense of like, this is awesome. You guys, you can do it. You're gifted. You're talented. You got to do it. And almost just kind of pouring that, I guess that like passion of my own. And I remember it was just like, they did do it and they're a highly successful nonprofit this day. And he's like, Trav, it just, if we would have met with you and sort of kind of, he didn't say it exactly this way, but that sort of borrowed confidence that you offloaded, sort of was the last push, and for me, it wasn't like, it's not disingenuous. It's not just like I'm being fake and you can do it. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I believe in you so much. I believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Go do this,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I even hear that in the way that you encourage our kids, and in the way that you care for your brother Jeremy, who, like I mentioned, you do caregiving, um, and you speak so much agency and dignity and worth and vision into everyone. So it's a
Yeah.
it's a great leadership quality of an 8. Um, but let's shift gears for a minute and talk about relationship needs and
Mm-hmm.
attachment needs. So, on our podcast, we talk a lot about the intersection of Enneagram and attachment theory.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, you have discovered a little bit more about your attachment style. How
Mm-hmm.
would you describe what you've learned?
Yeah, know a lot less about this, but learning about it. Yeah, that I think we've kind of landed that would be in the fearful avoidant, which can tend to be sort of this mix of pursuing connection, and then when there's like flags that come up of like, oh, this isn't safe, or what if I'm rejected or whatever, then pulling way back and then anxiously jumping back in, and sort of this really push pull dynamic.
Hmm.
Um, but also like you've really noticed, I guess you've talked about, but still a little bit more of a dismissive uh angle
Yeah.
of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's been a really helpful tool in our relationship to learn these patterns and to be able to name kind of the emotional energy of like what happens when we are triggered, because we kind of revert to our like 6-year-old selves.
Mm-hmm.
Until we really can kind of slow that process down and and name it and share with one another how we're doing. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
automatic default in attachment style is, for both of us actually, more of this fearful avoidant. But
Mm-hmm.
naturally, what happens in relationships is one person is more dismissive and one person is more
Mm-hmm.
anxious when
Yeah.
that pattern happens. And most of our marriage have been more of the dismissive, less emotional, obviously with the 8
Mm-hmm.
patterns, not wanting to share like deep feelings or be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
most of our marriage, I was the anxious pursuer,
Mm-hmm.
probably more critical, more needy, clingier, and in recent years, learning some of this stuff, like I've
Mm-hmm.
calmed down a lot more on the anxious side and distanced some in healthy
Mm-hmm.
independence, um, healthy self-soothing, for that
Mm-hmm.
anxious response. Um, and seen an uptick in some of, the pursuing and willingness to be vulnerable and have needs and physical touch and all that stuff on your side. So there's been a balancing, but it's also this really challenging space that I think we've found to like, where is that healthy balance, the in between, not swinging too far one way or the other way. So we're just constantly practicing and learning and trying to implement what we believe is helpful. And when we practice, you know, what we preach, it works. And then there's
Yep.
sometimes that we're human and we don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So what do you see as far as like we talk in Gottman language sometimes like stonewalling or, some of the dismissive avoidant things, like what do you notice coming out and why do you think you do that if you think about your Enneagram number and your patterns?
So like tendencies you're saying like of like stonewalling,
Defensiveness, those would be things you would be really familiar with those characteristics.
Yeah. So like, first of all, I think stonewalling would be, so, stonewalling is where you can, get silent or, maybe it's I don't know what are patterns, but sometimes like if you've got multiple things of feedback and, I can start to feel like I'm shutting down after a while or feeling like, okay, this is just thing after thing after thing, and but because inside I'm feeling increased shame, but also like I think for me stonewalling can be this defensive mechanism of like almost like I want to really blast and say something, whatever, that's going to make this whole thing worse. And so it I think comes often from a good place of trying to like control that and like, okay, well, I'm not going to say anything because, the whole like, if you got nothing good to say, but then stonewalling can really be problematic when it's sort of this kind of continued rhythm you always do. And then, or if you want to stay there, right? So like if it, like, I think we would say it's okay if, you communicate to your partner, like, hey,
Yeah.
right now I just need to process for a little bit. But I think it's hard for me to do that or even to recognize to say that. I would say this, either stonewall and shut down or kind of blast. It's kind of these extremes of like, and then in that is defensiveness too, of just like almost, kind of that idea of like for an 8, that wants to armor up. Well, why do you armor up? To defend, and so the armor is to almost you're wearing it. I remember I was getting spiritual direction with a good friend for a few years. And one of the things, he was a 4, so he could just see through my soul. But I remember like him kind of almost saying the thing of like, I see you just wearing a coat of armor that's heavy. Isn't that heavy, Travis? Like he'd have these ways to ask the question. Like,
Yeah.
isn't that just heavy, Travis, to just wear that?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's heavy.
Yeah, and when you talk about like it's either or it feels like your only option is blast or shut down, that tension I have learned and you've learned also is that the repressed center for the Enneagram 8 is the emotional center, the heart center. And so being able to access emotions is just naturally a lot harder. Being able to know what you need, to know how you feel. That's why that movement towards 2 and insecurity is so helpful, because it gets you into your heart. It gets you into knowing needs and compassion and love, like experiencing and pursuing love. You know, yeah, it's it is a lifelong work for 8s to learn to soften. They need their strength in certain contexts. It's a gift to the world. But then in close relationships, they really have to know where that balance is to soften, to listen well, to lean in, to understand like what are the triggers of emotions in themselves, to be able to share that in a vulnerable way. Like it's all work, but
Mhm.
so helpful to learn that stuff. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
how do you feel like our interaction between, I've mentioned a 4 and you're an 8, that like
Mhm.
our pairing, and where do you see we shine, and where do you see the unique challenges of a 4 and an 8?
Well, when we're not fighting and in a place of like we can laugh at that pairing when it's bad or hard, we kind of talk about it's either like a glowing fire that sort of just attracts others and this kind of glow and warmth, or it's like a bad pyro display that just
Like a beautiful
fire,
scented candle, or
yeah, or a house fire and everyone's running out. I I think where we shine is this space of, the 4 brings so much authenticity and unique thinking and creativity. And, again, the 8s, sort of confidence to go with that, believe in it, walk together in it. Often you lead the way in ideas, and it's not like I just agree with everything, but the things that I really feel passionate about too, like I'm right there with you, and I think you feel the maybe updraft is the word. I don't know if, but like maybe not seeing the wind beneath your wings. That's pretty lame, but just just kind of maybe helping rise. I don't know, like versus because we talk about so many couples where, one's the idea person, one's always the wait, no, we're never doing that. And they kind of don't get anywhere because it's sort of this just push pull
yeah.
thing or like stagnant. But I do think when we're shining and in a good place, like with creativity and with projects and with being, we just like, let's do this.
Hmm.
Let's shine in the world and let's bring this thing that people are missing. Like I have like we said, an eye for the marginalized, and where can we, and then just so when we put our pairing together that way, I think we can really light up the world.
Mm,
And we have stories about that where just our lives together have, whether it's in leading a group or people just saying how much, you know, um, something we've been part of them that they've really enjoyed. When we're not, and it's can be really combative, it can be, um, 4s and 8s, I do think can really struggle. I don't want to act like an expert here, but in certain pairings, I think more than others in certain pairings, because that intensity emotionally of the 4, the intensity of just life and passion of an 8, like when that sort of gets triggered and we hurt one another in ways or misunderstand, like it can just flare. And so
yeah.
instead of just, and not that one way is better than the other, because sometimes even just people are avoidant or just like, well, we don't have conflict. Well, you may not, but inside you may be depressed, or you may be like, there's ways that's
Yeah.
still destructive. So I think ours is just more on the surface, and
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. So,
Yeah, and it's a demonstration that we truly care. Like when you're fighting
mhm,
and you're still
right.
in it and you're still expressing the things you want to feel heard and understood, like
Yeah.
you're invested. Like you
Yeah.
said, sometimes people uh just go quiet and
Hmm.
numb, and they don't talk anymore. They don't fight. There's not much going on. That's actually probably a worse sign, like research shows, for, the marriage being in a lot more trouble.
Yeah.
Um, and we haven't talked about this, but one of the groupings with the Enneagram is you have the positive outlook, you have logical, and you
Hmm.
have emotional realness. So, like how
Mm.
each number might face disappointments or conflicts, like
Yep.
4s and 8s are both in the emotional realness
Hmm.
grouping. And so that just means what we feel. It's just like right on the surface, and we're honest.
Yep.
And so with that comes just a lot more sparks. We have a friend in one of our marriage, or a couple friends in one of our marriage groups that's a 4 and a 6, and they have the same thing. It's just
Mm.
sparky all the time.
Yep.
And it's part of that pattern of like
Yeah.
it just being on the surface. And then, like you
Hmm.
mentioned, my emotional intensity and, your intensity of strength, it's like that just, it's
Hmm.
tough. But that's why we've both committed to learn so much and to keep doing the work and to keep investing. And
Uh-huh.
we have weekly date nights and Gottman State of the Union meetings. And
Uh-huh.
hopefully we'll do an episode just about that at some point. And, it it's worth it. It's worth all the extra work.
Yeah.
So let's bring it home in terms of the transforming eight. We've shared a little bit about what that might look like, but in some of our resources, we describe an eight that is in their like authentic spirit led self as just protective and empowering. So you did a good job explaining that. And then the spiritual truth that they really need to hear is I am safe and I can let my guard down because God is my protector.
Uh-huh.
And just if they're not triggered and fearful and they're secure and resting in God's strength, they can empower others and
Yeah.
be a secure protector. So like what would be a situation where knowing some of the work you've done to try to soften and become more innocent, where you feel the most like your secure self?
So what would be an example or an
Yeah,
instance
like
of
what's one example of when you're there doing that thing, that's you in your true self?
Well, you might have to redirect me. I can think of some things that are where I feel um like when one is like being in our land and just working in the trees, being just grounded in nature, just being breathing, slow. I mean, it's work, but it's like, but it's like, I don't know. I'm just like present. I'm not. Yeah, maybe that's a bad example because I'm doing still. I think eights, we have such an energy to just be doing all the time.
That's not wrong. I mean, that's
Yeah,
a perfectly fine example,
yeah,
because you get to give the answer for what feels like your secure, true self.
yeah. Well, I guess I'm just saying I feel really at peace. I mean,
Right.
do I feel like that's my true self? I'm not sure. It feels like part of it's the setting,
Yeah.
but
What
I do
about
think like,
an example
mm,
also with people?
mhm,
Is
yeah.
there another situation where you feel that, but you're also with people and not like withdrawn from the real world?
Yeah, I mean, that is things like, we got a friend who kind of, he's in his 60s and has, I would describe as mild special needs. I'm not even sure what his disability would be called, but, he, but I love my time with him. Um, we had a, small group and he plays music and, you know, and I got the idea with our small group one time of like, what would it look like to kind of throw him, like, this is out in public, like have him do a show, like a rock show, and kind of be there, and we'll just be, all in, and he can, and that was one of the most magic times of my year that year. I guess it's times where it's coming alongside of people again, that are in the margins, whether it's a disability or whether it's, my work in foster care or something, and really empowering them to the forefront in the spotlight,
Mhm.
um, to be seen. And I don't know, I guess I've, you may have a comment on this. When it comes to our wounds and when it comes to why we're wired in certain ways, I think there's a sense in the eight that what we're trying to do in those cases as well, and this is a subconscious thing, is maybe we never felt in that way seen in our weakest moment or in a really vulnerable time. And so it's sort of like recreating that experience that's projected more into others. So it doesn't come from like less compassion. Um, it feels very compassionate, but maybe there is a little bit of a, this is not what I got or
Hmm.
felt like at some point. And so I'm kind of wanting to kind of give that to you.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that when you spend years of avoiding being vulnerable and sharing your needs, you miss out a lot on receiving care. And so one thing I think you've really learned in the last 10 years is how good it feels to give care.
Hmm.
Um, and it's an echo of maybe at times you had wonderful parents that met all your needs and really did care deeply about you.
Yeah.
Um, but maybe not always knew how to reach you on an emotional level. And so then with your walls up and guarded, it would have been
Hmm.
something you wouldn't have received as much emotional attunement.
Right. Yep.
Um, and and then learn not to expect it
Right.
and not be soft in that way. So yeah, I love that description. And I really think that's a good example of an 8 that is transforming into look more like a 2, which
Hmm.
is that work, that security arrow. And then I love the description of going out to the land and withdrawing, but you're caring for your soul, but you're also still doing,
Hmm.
but it's doing something you love, which is building trails and
Yeah.
getting your hands in the dirt, like when you grew up on the
Hmm.
farm. And, it kind of is the culmination of everything you truly need to care
Right.
for yourself, to then go back out into the world to care for others
Yeah.
and to give away more agency.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So what would be one transforming practice that you have found now in life that you just love to reach for?
As an 8 or the help,
Yeah,
just
as an 8
generally,
or
or
you specifically, what's something you're practicing that's helping you transform?
well, um, it's a struggle for me to slow down. I mean, I say I don't know. Like I can have plenty of times where I'm just uh, reading, um, which I love, or just but even in things where you're not necessarily like you're static, like you're not moving, you can still be like overly active. I mean, I think for me, it's um, working on practices of just say, for instance, during the day, like trying to take some time to just sit outside and do nothing, not read, not um, scroll on my phone, not think of the next thing, but just like be present, looking around, feeling the sunshine, just breathing. I guess that's some of that. Trying to think. Can you
Yeah.
think of other things that
No,
I'm
that's
working on or doing?
perfect.
I
That's
mean,
great.
you remind me a lot of like rhythms and like are you doing your soul care today? So I think
Mhm.
everyday soul care can look different.
Mhm.
I'd love to be doing better just prayer and just silent prayer and all that, but that's
Mhm.
hopefully something I can keep working on.
Yeah. Yeah, did you
So
have any other quotes you wanted to share about the heart of an
well,
8?
I thought I did have some quotes. I thought, if you're listening and this again, like, you're trying to understand an 8 more, or you're an 8 and like you can relate to these things, I think these quotes really illuminate like what 8s feel and sense. Um, and so I'm going to read just a few of these, and they, I think, lay the landscape of what an 8 thinks. And then I'm going to end with two kind of final quotes that I think are redemptive of like help reorient how we should better think. So, here's just a few. So one of them is, and this is a line. These are just kind of random authors or writers, but one of them is, "Never grow a wishbone where your backbone ought to be."
Mhm.
So again, this is a very sort of just 8 line.
Yeah.
Um, "I'm not upset that you lied to me. I'm upset that from now on I can't believe you." So
Yes.
so
That's very
um,
8.
here's a great one. "Have you ever been in love? Horrible, isn't it? It makes you so vulnerable. It opens your chest and it opens up your heart, and it means that someone can get inside you and mess you up. Someone can get inside and mess you up.
Oh.
Strong people are made by opposition, like kites that go up in the wind." Okay? So I can really relate to, it's that's kind of what shaped and formed us. All right, so now those were kind of things I can really relate to that. Here's two then ones that really are ones that 8s need to hear. Um, or can help reorient us. This guy says, "Gentleness is stronger than severity. Water is stronger than rock. Love is stronger than force."
Mhm.
You're
That's
like,
awesome.
Trav, put that above. Can you tattoo that on somewhere? Okay. And that's just like a compass point. And then this is one I love. It's one of my all time favorites, short one. But Grow antenna, not horns. Said by
Yeah.
the president of Yale University one time. Grow antenna, not horns.
Mm,
So
yeah. Like you said, read the room, sense what others, how they're experiencing you. Yeah, that's
yeah,
eights
and
definitely need that.
listen. Like I think that what I love so much about that quote is this sense of like eights for us, we just react, instinctual. Boom.
Hmm.
What do I need to attack? What do I need to
Listen.
like?
Yeah.
But so much of our even attacking energy, or just I need to armor up, or I need to engage. So much of that mist of like, have I even sat to listen to what this is? Breathe, and like, and maybe it doesn't
Hmm.
involve any active work. Maybe it means me letting go. Maybe it means I was having an assumption. But that, I think, for us eights, when we can get more space between what's in our environment that triggers us to react
Hmm.
to our reacting, that buffer zone,
Yeah.
man, that's game changing. If we can lean into that space of, more breathing, or just, okay, I'm going to react, but not right now. Or I'm going to take some time to think about this or
Respond. Yeah.
respond. It's
Yeah.
very hard because it's so instinctual. It's just like,
Hmm.
but
Right.
it's the work. It's the
Yeah.
work.
Very, very good to hear all your thoughts. And I'm so thankful that you're willing to be vulnerable and share all the good little nuggets from the things that you've learned. I will share that Travis is an Enneagram coach and he's coaching only men at this point. But it will put some of the info for how to get in touch with him below if you want him to help you understand your patterns, or your husband,
And,
to get in touch with their softer side. Um, you know,
and
he's definitely taken a journey to do the work of understanding this stuff himself, and wants to,
yeah. And yeah. And I would just say my tagline for that is like, I'm a regular dude, jacked up. I've got a lot of my own bleep to deal with, and I'm in process. I don't have it all figured out. I'm walking with you. So if you resonate with some of the stuff I've said and you want to connect on this, and but as men, we need to lean into emotional awareness, and we need each other in this space too. So
yeah,
there
for
we go.
sure. Great coach. He's been doing some good work. And if you're interested in his books, we'll also put those in the show notes. Shiny Eyes and Redemption's Echo. So you can read those descriptions too. All right. So we close every show with a blessing. Thank you, Travis, for joining us. May you be aware and open to everything that comes to you today, welcoming it all for your transformation.
Thanks. Great to be on.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Transforming Us podcast. We hope that you enjoyed the conversation and that you found it helpful. If you loved what you heard, we would really appreciate if you would take a moment and leave us a 5-star review and rating. Your support helps us reach more listeners like you.
And also, don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more relationship content. Then, if you're looking to take your growth to the next level, check out our coaching services and groups at transformingus.org.
We're here to help you transform your patterns and enjoy more secure relationships.
Until next time, in the words of Raul Shane, you do not need to do big things. Just do small things in a big way. Then transformation will follow you.